And if you're understanding that being more polite and kind uh, was, meeting those expectations uh, was it was suggested or implied some condition of your employment. Do you think that suggestion or implication was driven by animus about your age or any health issues you were experiencing?
Again, I don't know why she said that. I felt I was kind to everybody.
Okay.
If I wasn't, she should have told me.
Okay. How did you feel about the turnover from St. Peter Emmanuel being under the church to moving to school under the Lumen Network?
How did I personally feel about it?
Yes.
I personally wanted the best for the school. I wasn't sure Lumen was the best for the school based on things that have happened in the past.
Okay. Please elaborate on what happened in the past.
They had gone into other schools and made deals with them, and then it fell apart and it didn't come to fruition.
Okay. Was it?
I was
I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead.
was willing to give them I was willing to give them a chance, and I was working with them, and I wanted it to work out for SPI.
Okay. But at that time of the transition, would it have been your preference not to go on into the Lumen Network?
It was at that point it was too late.
What about
The deal
what about before the transition? Would it have been your preference not to enter into the network?
at that point I think it was too late also.
What do you mean by that?
We had made a deal and we were good to our word.
Okay. What about before you made that deal? Would it have been your preference not to enter into the Lumen network?
Yes.
Okay. um, do you remember having a couple depositions that we took related to this matter in the discovery process?
I don't remember the exact discussion.
Okay. But I mean, you recall those occurring?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember explaining to me that your recollection that Lumen representatives told you you weren't a good fit in the Lumen network?
Yes.
Okay. Uh, and do you recall explaining to me why you think they said that about you?
Mostly.
Okay. What and can you tell me why? What's your understanding as to why they said that about you?
Because I have good business instincts, and when I pointed out things that I felt they were doing wrong, they didn't like it.
Okay. And do you remember who had said these such things to you?
Um, Sean Lundgren and Renata Hobart.
Okay. And were these conversations to that effect taking place before your first medical leave?
Yes.
Okay. And did they continue on periodically throughout the entire time you were employed under Lumen?
Yes.
Okay. And so, as you discussed, it is in the 1990s, you were principal of Lumen, correct?
Yes,
And through all the way, and then you weren't. We've been over this just a few minutes ago. But then from about the year 2000 or 2001, all the way to 2021, you'd worked there, correct?
correct.
And over those years, did you come to feel you had a good sense of how SPI should be run?
Yes,
And did you, once Lumen became involved, did you feel dissatisfaction with how they were changing things?
to some extent, yes.
And did you feel tension related to that dissatisfaction among yourself and others in the Lumen network?
Yes,
And do you dispute that in the year, the Times material here in 2020 and 2021, that you were an at-will employee under the Lumen network?
excuse me?
I mean, do you dispute that you were an at-will employee at this time?
Object to the extent it calls for a legal conclusion. We haven't established that my client even know that that means.
Yeah, the witness can answer if she understands what that means.
Ms. Kutz, do you understand what it means to be an at-will employee?
I do not.
Okay. Can we go to trial exhibit 6, please?
You're gonna have to give me a few more descriptors.
That would be Lumen Finder tab 1.
So respondents exhibit 1.
Correct. I believe, Ms. Kutz, are you holding trial exhibit 6, which is labeled Lumen 1?
Yes,
Okay. You recognize this document, Ms. Kutz?
yes,
Is that your signature at the bottom of this document?
yes, it is.
Okay. And at the bottom, right above your signature, do you see the paragraph that says, quote, I understand that employment at St. Peter Emmanuel, SPI, in parentheses, continuing, is, quote, at will, end quote. This means that SPI reserves the right to adjust any aspect of my employment or compensation package as business needs dictate. Did you follow along as I read that?
Yes,
Okay, and it goes on, as an at-will employee, both I and SPI retain the right to terminate the employment relationship at any time for any reason, with or without notice. Do you see that, Ms. Kutz? Did you follow along?
yes,
And did you sign right below that?
yes,
And did you read that, those sentences that I just read back to you before you signed this document?
yes,
Okay. Having gone over this again, do you dispute that you were an at-will employee in the years 2020 and 2021?
I'm gonna object. I think it still calls for a legal conclusion and frankly is irrelevant. Whether or not she's at will or not just doesn't play into whether or not she was discriminated against.
Attorney Stoffel.
Well, it just goes to her understanding of her employment circumstances, and that if she wasn't discriminated against, the termination was perfectly lawful.
Okay, and that's why it's not relevant, because we're here to talk about discrimination, and her status as an at-will employee has nothing to do with that. So,
Okay, we can move on. Ms. Kutz, uh, what was what was your understanding of any responsibilities you had for tracking and depositing of money for SPI?
Object to the extent it doesn't call for any specific time range. Obviously, your responsibilities changed over.
all right, did you want to affix a time frame to this, Attorney Stoffel?
How about in the year, in the spring and summer of 2021?
Ms. Kutz?
I'm thinking, I'm sorry. Was I even there?
But can we ask the question again in a way that pieces the time and the question together?
Okay, well, let's put it this way. You had between your medical leave in the spring of 2021 and before you went on vacation in July of 2021, did you have any responsibility to track and deposit monies for SPI?
Yes.
Okay. And did you understand that to be an official part of your job role as an administrative assistant at SPI?
No, that was my role as the treasurer
Okay. The treasurer of what?
of SPI.
Okay. Okay, could you please go to Trial Exhibit 7? This is tab 2 in the Lumen book. Okay, Ms. Kutz, do you recognize this document?
No,
You don't recognize this to be the job description of the administrative assistant, as it says at the top, school and church at Lumen?
no.
Okay. Well, if the document reflects in the bottom bullet at the bottom of the page that a job duty for an administrative assistant at a Lumen school involves overall responsibility for collection of all money associated with the school treasury. And then it goes on to list a few things, and the sentence concludes, and tracking and depositing of school money. Did you understand? I mean, does that change your understanding as to whether that was included as your role, a duty under your role as an administrative assistant at SPI?
Uh, I don't see how it changes my role because I didn't know about it. The role with money was part of the treasurer job.
Well, I mean, I guess maybe regardless of what umbrella it fell under, was that one of your duties related to SPI school?
Was tracking the money?
And ensuring deposits?
Yes.
Okay. Could you go to, well, let me ask you this. Throughout your time at Lumen, did you receive employee handbooks?
As an employee, I never received a handbook.
From Lumen?
Correct.
You never did?
No, sir.
Okay. Could you please go to Lumen Book? At tab 4, which I believe would be marked as Exhibit 26. Okay. Ms. Kutz, this is page, if you can see here, 52 of a handbook. If you'd like, we could get out a copy of the full document, but do you understand this to be a signature page of a handbook for, as it says at the very top there, Lutheran Urban Mission Initiative, Inc.?
Yes.
Okay. And is that your signature at the bottom?
Yes, it is.
And so if you've never received a handbook from Lumen, how did it come to pass that you signed this?
And Attorney Stoffel, can I get the Bates number again for that document?
It's Lumen 6. It's tab 4 in the Lumen, or it would be Respondents Exhibit 4, perhaps, is the way you have it organized, Judge.
All right. I will mark this document as Exhibit 26 for today's hearing.
Ms. Cutts, there's been a bit of time that passed in an exchange between the judge and I. Do you recall the pending question?
No, can you please repeat it?
If you were never provided a Lumen handbook, how did it come to pass that you signed this page 52 of a Lumen handbook?
I don't recall.
Okay. Is it possible you were provided a handbook and now you're just not recalling?
I don't believe I ever was handed a handbook.
Okay.
I do believe I was asked to sign a page, but I don't believe I was ever given a handbook.
So you were asked to sign page 52 of a handbook, having never been provided a handbook. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Who asked you to do that?
Probably Miss Doherty.
Okay. Do you have, I mean, probably, or do you actually have a recollection of that?
I'm just guessing.
Okay. Do you have any recollection of expressing misgivings of any sort that somebody would ask you to sign a handbook The last page of the handbook you never received?
It was probably one of those, I got to get this done. They said I need all this paperwork done. Can you please sign this?
Okay. I mean, you just said probably again. Do you have any recollection of something like that taking place?
Oh, but there was a lot of that did take place.
Okay. Can you say with any certainty that that took place when you signed this document?
No, I cannot.
Okay. You can put that aside for now. In your time at Lumen, or sorry, at SPI school, before Lumen was involved, I mean, you were the principal for a while, you stated, and you were also a longtime employee. Had you ever been involved with following up with any employees to ask for medical substantiation for time away from work?
Yes, I have.
Okay, how many times?
Approximately 3 times.
Okay, tell me about the first one that comes to mind.
Um, a teacher was hurt in the art room. She cut her finger and she had to go to the doctor. And we asked her to provide documentation.
Okay,
And then she went on short-term disability.
and when was this time? Do you remember about the year or the
Oh no, it was a long time ago.
was it when you were principal?
Yes,
Okay. So as principal, was it your part of your responsibilities to secure a medical note from her doctor?
yes.
Okay. And uh, and why did you need that medical note?
Why did I need it?
Yeah.
Because I was helping her with her short-term disability.
Okay. Did she miss any school? Or well, I mean, she was on short-term disability because she was missing work, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Uh, did, was there any reason other than short-term disability to have that medical note from a doctor?
No,
As a principal of a school, if employees were calling in saying they needed to be out for medical reasons, uh, would you ever look for or seek or request medical substantiation just to ensure that that in fact is what's going on?
if it was longer than 6 days, yes,
Okay, if it was longer than 6 days.
yes.
Okay. Was that 6 days, where did that number come from?
That was in the SPI handbook.
Okay. What was the second time that comes to mind?
Um, a teacher got fell off of her horse and got trampled. Leg and hip were damaged.
Were you the principal at this time?
Yes.
Okay. And did you tell me about the circumstances of needing a medical note from this person?
Well, she was on long-term disability. That was a little harder to do.
What do you mean that was harder to do?
Well, short term is just about, I think it's 8 weeks off. Long term is much longer, of course, and you need more documentation. So we work with the insurance company and they tell us what we need.
Okay. And were there any other reasons other than submitting things to the insurance company that you wanted a medical note from this person?
No.
Okay, what about the third time?
Um, the next principal hurt her knee and she had to be out for surgery on her knee. And because I knew how to do the short term and the long term, she asked me to help her with her claim. So I did.
When you were principal, did you ever deal with employees who wouldn't just for would not appear for work without explanation on any given day? Is that something you experienced as a supervisor?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any in mind, like an instance in mind you could tell me about?
We had a janitor that did that on several occasions.
And was there any negative consequences for the janitor?
Um, we called him and asked him where he was and told him that he can't just not show up for work. He has to call in and he has to give us a legitimate reason why he's not there. And he was told if he did it again, that he might be terminated because the school still has to be cleaned and life still goes on, even if he can't go on.
Okay. What was his what did he say? What was his response?
Object to the extent it's calling for hearsay.
It is hearsay. I'm going to allow the witness to respond to it. Ms. Kutz, what was his response?
He just said he wasn't feeling good and that he hoped to be back tomorrow. And tomorrow he didn't show up.
What became of this employee?
He was finally terminated.
Okay. Uh, did you give him a did you ever give him a kind of a deadline to show up or provide medical substantiation?
I can object, that's a compound question.
Did you ever give him a deadline to provide medical substantiation before you terminated him?
No, I read to him what was in the handbook, and he did not meet what it said in the handbook. I had written him up for not meeting the expectations, and he did not meet them 3 times, and that was enough for termination.
Okay. Now, I'm going to move on to your first medical leave in the year 2021. We've been referring to that, I think, just kind of for purposes of moving along the spring medical leave of 2021. Do you know what I'm referring to?
Yes.
And just generally, uh, can you tell me what caused you to be on that medical leave?
I had an eye stroke.
Okay. And did that impact any bodily functions of yours?
I lost the vision in my right eye.
And when you returned from that leave, did you request any accommodations related to that?
I did because I had migraines really bad from that. And the fluorescent lights really hurt my head.
Okay.
And I asked that people did not sneak up on me from the right side because I couldn't see them. I asked that they approach me from the left side.
Okay. And in your recollection, were those requests honored by the people around you?
Sometimes they would forget.
Okay. And if somebody forgot, do you think it was related to any ill feelings towards you?
No,
Okay. If somebody forgot, would you provide a reminder?
I would.
And were those reminders accepted faithfully by the people you were dealing with?
Most of the time.
Okay. Is there a time you can think of that they weren't?
No,
Okay. You recall telling me in your deposition that if somebody forgot, I don't think there was any maliciousness intended by it.
can you repeat that? You broke up really bad.
Oh, do you recall if telling me in the deposition that if somebody forgot about these requests that you told me, I don't think there was any maliciousness intended by it.
No, I don't think they were being malicious.
Okay. I'd like to change the topic to your testimony related to a conversation you had with Stacy Doherty about credit card. You remember testifying about that in the last hearing?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell me what day did that occur on?
July 1st, I believe.
July 1st. If I recall you saying it was July 2nd when you provided testimony in this hearing. Then the last go around, are you?
It might have been.
Okay. So, having me said that, does it refresh your recollection, or do you have any memory or certainty related to whether it took place on the 1st or 2nd?
It was the last Friday of July. It could have been the 2nd.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said it was the last Friday of July. It could have very well been the 2nd.
Okay, so whatever the 2nd couldn't be the last Friday of July. There are 30 or 29 days that follow. Can you clarify what you mean by that?
I was going to go to my son's wedding.
Oh, your last working day in July.
My last working day, yeah.
Okay, I follow.
I'm sorry.
No, I just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I guess we could look in the record, the calendars would reflect whatever day that was. I mean, is that your understanding?
Yes.
Okay. And how did it come to pass that this conversation about the credit card took place?
Stacy had told me that Lumen had given her a credit card to use from now on, and that they were not going to honor the Capital One credit card anymore. So we should not use it.
Who's we?
SPI should not use that credit card any longer.
Okay.
I said that's going to be a slight problem because we have things that are charged to it monthly that I would have to have time to discontinue those services.
Okay. And how is that issue resolved?
It wasn't.
Okay.
So then I said, well, if they're not gonna let us use it anymore, I'd like to turn it back into my own personal card because I don't have any Visa cards. All I have is MasterCards. And nowadays, a lot of things only accept Visa. And she said she had no problem with me using it for personal stuff. And Pastor Polzine was there at the same time, and he saw no problem with that either.
Okay. Did Pastor Polzine have the authority to just make that decision?
Well, he was on the board. I don't see why he wouldn't.
Okay. Is that a decision Pastor Polzine could make unilaterally as a board member, or would board approval be needed?
I would think he could make that by himself.
Okay. And what leads you to reach that conclusion versus the alternative I asked about, whether the full board would be needed?
The full board had not been active for quite some time.
Okay. Was Al's son on the board?
Yes.
Okay. Did you talk to Al's son about using this card for personal reasons after July 1?
No.
Okay. Why, did you feel any need to?
No.
Why not?
There wasn't time.
Okay. Did you understand Al's son was a authorized user of that card?
Yes.
Okay. But you weren't concerned that he was a user and now you had the understanding that it was a personal card? I mean, let me put it this way. Weren't you concerned that he would be charging things onto your personal card?
No. Pastor said he would talk to him at church.
Okay. Okay. Was there any discussion with Ms. Doherty about whether she should consult with anybody before saying she had no problem with your using the card for personal reasons going forward?
No.
Was there any discussion about how to convert the card from billing to SPI to billing to you?
No. I was going to call him and change the address to my apartment.
Okay. Was there any discussion about the fact that the card itself was a business card and now you're proposing to use it as a personal card?
No.
Did you have any concerns about that?
No.
Why not?
Because it always was my card.
For a business,